They took care of it for us. Everything looks a little drab at this time of year, but I assure you there will be plenty of flowers to see later in the year. These are the apple trees. This gnarled old thing in the foreground produces lovely, lovely cooking apples. They're called Crimson Bramley. The one behind is Earl Kingslip or Lord Kingslip, a really delicious eating apple. This one is an early eater. You have to catch it just at the right time, and if you do, the fruit are delicious. If not, they don't taste so good. But some years we get buckets and buckets and barrow loads of apples off these trees, although last year we only got 2 small bowls full. I guess we were lucky. Some people didn't get any apples at all. Coming now into our utility area. It's a little incinerator. We don't use it very often, I must admit. And back here we have the compost bins. 3 wooden ones. This is the sort of active compost. This is where we're dumping it right now. And the 2 black ones you saw just now are where we've got compost that's already sort of cooked itself. Back here we've just got quite a bit of storage for things, old bricks, compost, some of the bamboo canes that we have cut down. Every now and then they do a runner across the lawn and we have to go after them. Plenty of storage back here. I stored these paving stones like this and then decided that actually that's quite a good idea, and I might use those as little end tables when I finally construct a bench in that secret area by the dry stone wall. Now this is your first view of our bank. It's not our bank at all, of course. It belongs to the next door neighbours. But it's quite interesting because it's in this bank that the badgers live. Now, at this point, I'm actually just on the edge of our property. And you can see, if you look down there, there's a pathway that we've put in so that we can keep the old fence line clear. We took the fence down because it was rotten and because the laurels kept falling down and breaking it. And I'll show you what we've done with that in a minute. Right, we're going to head back towards the house now. This is another work in progress. This is where all of that soil is going to be piled up, so it'll be a little bit raised. And then we're going to grow things like crocosmia on it. They're very easy to grow. They'll take all of this shade, and hopefully they'll keep the weeds down, because weeds is what we got a lot of, especially ground elder, which is very, very difficult to get rid of. Here's this dreadful bank. Those things that look like trees aren't trees, they're just overgrown laurel bushes. They shade everything out, they break easily, and they're a real pest. We've got new neighbours, and we're hoping that maybe we can work with them to make this a nicer looking thing and reduce the height of some of this so it doesn't shade us out quite so much. Can you hear those birds? The sweet song is the robin, and the chacking noise is coming from the jackdaws. Let's just take a look around from here. That hill in the background is Stanyeld. There's a golf course up on the top of that. Crazy place to put a golf course. This is the rhubarb bed. You'd never guess that it would grow so well in such a wet, cold, shady place, but it does extremely well, and you can just start now to see the little pink buds coming up in the middle there. If I can find one for you, yeah, there's some. These are the old fence panels. It was a woven lath fence. We piled them up, put lots of stuff in them to make a habitat pile, and roofed it over with turf. The turf is now just about gone. Unfortunately, what we didn't realise was that there was some bamboo in the turf, and it's still coming up, so we just hack it back every time and hope that eventually it'll give up the ghost. We're now coming back into the sort of more formal part of the garden through a honeysuckle arch, which of course isn't right now. Here's one of our cairns. This one was built by Christie, and it's beginning to fall down a little bit, so we might have to rebuild it soon. Going off on the left is what we call the quiet path. There are two paths back to the house. This is the quiet path. It's quiet because it's got a layer of mulch on it. It takes you around the back of the bushes. Now, when we first moved in, this whole area was shrubbed over with bushes that grew along this edge of the bank. Some of those bushes are still there, but we've cut them back. They used to grow all the way over to this edge of this new footpath that we put in. Let's take a walk down the quiet path. And we can look around now. Take a look. Here's the main lawn. That's our trellis with the honeysuckle. Over there is where the nest is, behind the pittosporum there, and that's that massive great tree. Now you can see it's so tall it's actually up into the sunshine at the top. Patio. Up here you can see the bank a bit better, because this is where we had some of the laurels cut down last year with the permission of our neighbour. The badger set is up in here. You can't really see it very well, but they've got holes and tunnels running all the way along this bank. I think it must be quite old. The ground's a bit uneven. This is one of the places where the badgers come through. You can see how they've trodden the ground down. In fact, there was wood here. John had to replace it with a new log there, because they just scrabble and dig and cut to make things as comfortable for themselves as possible. This is John's first habitat pile. It's basically a pile of sticks, but it's constrained by this rather fine bamboo teepee. It's made quite a feature in the garden, really. I've now replicated it with another teepee on this side. I've got a rose growing in it. And here is another cairn. Moving on from the cairn, I've just put this little totem back on it. We're coming back round to the front of the house. This part is a bit of a mess, really. Another one of the feeders. This one's outside John's study, so he sits here and shouts at the squirrels when they jump on. You probably can't believe this, but there is one squirrel who jumps from the top of our little insect sculpture here all the way across to the bird feeder there. In fact, first time I saw him, I thought he was actually flying through the air. Thought we had a flying squirrel, which of course is not very likely since they aren't native to this country. So we're coming back round to the front of the house now. This is our front door, which no one ever uses. I'm hoping they will, because I've sort of rearranged things a bit in the house. And now we have another little path that takes us round the back of this bed. This is kind of a wild, messy bed. It's full of roses and native plants of various sorts, and then some odd, interesting ones like this one, whose name I've totally forgotten. Deutzia scabra. There. I just love the colour that some of this bark is, with all the lichen on it. A huge spotted laurel. Broom. Okay, we have to duck under here a bit. Tree peonies look very interesting and crazy in the summer, but in the winter they look absolutely dreadful with all the sort of dead stuff on them. Another gorgeous acer. That's an interesting thing. It's a tree heather. When we first moved in, it was probably about 10 feet high. We've had to cut it down to get some light in, but it's growing beautifully, so it should soon recover. And on down this little path, and we're now back onto the driveway where we started. I just want to show you one more thing on this side, which is another little patio. We call this one the raised patio. Not quite sure who put it in. It looks pretty old. This area was probably landscaped in late Victorian or early Edwardian times. It's a nice, pleasant place to sit. And that really does bring us almost back full circle. If we go down here now onto that raised patio, and look here, we find yet another little pathway. This is the Viburnum bontense again. This one's still blooming and smells beautiful. And we can just come on round here. Hello. Where'd that come from? Oh, it's fallen over. Oh! Hello, Pam.